welcome to today's episode of Tomorrow's Leader, where we dive deep on all things leader related to leading yourself and leading others. I'm John Laurito, your host, here with Vikram. Vikram, thanks for joining the show again.
John, pumped, excited. Let's go, man.
Me too, man. I loved our conversation the first time so much. I'm like, I got to have this guy on with more time, and we can get into more depth and put you on the big channel here. So let's jump into this. There's a lot that I really want to get into with you, and you've had a lot of success with several different businesses. You've influenced a lot of people. You've found your niche. I want to get into that a little bit, kind of how you got into that. But we were talking just before about some things that I think are really meaningful to leaders out there. There's so many leaders that get caught in kind of the busy, crazy, chaotic mode. I see this all the time. It doesn't matter what industry. I see this with senior level executives that have been doing this for years and years, and they're just all over the place. And somehow they kind of feel that that's a sign of, okay, I'm doing the right things. And in reality, you know better than that. I know you have a really strong feeling and perspective on that. Let's talk about that. What should it look like for the right type of leader in terms of how they really run their day or their week?
Gary Keller wrote The One Thing, and it's a powerful book. I'm sure most of your executives have read it. If they haven't, it's a must read, and also listen to the audiobook. In it, he did a survey. I think there's some published research that shows like they gave all these CEOs, executives, and C-suite folks a stopwatch that they hung around their neck. And literally they had to go through, and when they're actually doing real work throughout the day, they had to press yes and turn on the stopwatch. And then when they stopped doing real work, then they turned it off. And then there's all these other things that fill their day. On average, guess how, I think, if I believe the numbers are right from my memory, how long do you think they actually worked in the day?
I'd say like 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah, I think it was like 2 hours.
Yeah. That's
so
crazy.
Of true work. So that means the 80-20, like 8-hour work week, 2 hours are really spent doing quality. It's 80-20 again. So 20% of the things these executives, corporate leaders are doing are yielding 80% of the results. The rest of it is what we call the FaceTime, and not the FaceTime for your iPhone, but it's the FaceTime. And I'm in front of people, showing up, being present, but it's not leading to any, manageable or measurable outcomes.
Yeah.
And the famous president, Dwight D. Eisenhower, he has this matrix he created because people were so impressed with how efficient he was in life. And I think a lot of your listeners may have heard about this, but it's really these 4 quadrants, right? There's the bottom, if you think about like a square with 4 blocks, bottom right block is, not important, not urgent. The bottom left blocks is, it's urgent, but not important. Top left box is, important and urgent. And the top right box is, it's not urgent, but important. We spend, a lot of time in the bottom 2 blocks, and that's the number one thing you want to do. So we have this obligation that we have in our work and our personal life. We need to eliminate those completely. Mm-hmm. If it's not a hell yes, you must make it a no. If it's not, and if you, depending on what business system you use to track your life, I use EOS, which is, based on rocks and, quarterly goals, and then leading to your, yearly goal, and then 3-year, 5-year, 10-year, et cetera. So if whatever the quarter you're working on, the 90 days, and you have maybe 2 to 3 goals, and we can just stick to professional for now. If those things you're doing are not really going to make an impact on achieving those goals, you have to learn to say no. And that ruthlessness will create radical exponential growth. Mm-hmm. And so I think that something like that, some kind of model of a framework, John, would probably be very helpful for your executives.
I think that's great. And I think you've got 2 camps of people. I think you've got camps of people that know that they are spending their time in the wrong areas, and they know the difference between, okay, what I'm doing is what I should be doing and what I'm not. And they're able to know when to hit that button, so to speak, in your example there. And there's also people that don't necessarily, they're not even aware of it. They're not even at the point of having the self-awareness of saying, you know what, I am spending my time and a vast majority of my time doing the wrong things. is there some kind of question or framework that, or lens that somebody needs to look through to be able to be more self-aware of? You said the hell yes method. I mean, that's great. I mean, there may be some people out there that are like, geez, there's not many things in my day I would say hell yes to. How do they make that shift, you know?
Yeah. So one of the things is awareness. So to be aware, you need to figure out what you're doing. So a lot of the, top high level people I coach, and I'm sure some of the people you coach, John, is really analyzing your day. And so we do a time study, literally set a reminder on your phone to go off every 30 minutes and write down what you're doing, and literally map out from like whatever time you get up to whatever time you sleep, how did you spend that one day? Then go dissect it. How much time was spent in health, wellness, how much time was spent toward my family, my friends, my kids, how much time was spent in nutrition, how much time was spent in sleep, and how much time was spent doing wasteful activities, and how much time was spent doing things that are actually going to move my company or my business forward. And seeing all that, then you're like, all right, now I'm seeing how I spend my time. I didn't realize it. It's time to adjust and make small tweaks. You're not going to do it all at once, but there's a really good book by one of my mentors, Craig Ballantyne. He wrote a book called The Perfect Week Formula. It's meant for high performers who have too much crap they said yes to, and they need to clean up their life. Mm-hmm. And it's not meant for people who are not, these people are already exercising probably in the morning. They're already doing all the high performance stuff, but they're still not where they want to be. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like, it's like Miracle Morning 2.0. Like we all talk about these morning routines and morning stuff. He's the anti-morning routine guy. And he told me this, and I still remember when I talked to him. He's like, stop doing the meditations, the journaling, the workouts as your first thing in the morning. He goes, there's a 2W rule: water and work. So create, and this is what I've done from in my life, and I found to be extremely helpful. Create a powerful morning routine that involves the first 30 minutes is doing NUI time, not urgent, but important. I'll give you an example. If I'm an executive and I need to create a pitch to attract a potential client into my business, it's not urgent that I do it. I can still probably get by without doing it. But if I do this, I can potentially get a $10 million client in my company or something. Or maybe I'm a salesperson. There's like some powerful leads that I met at a conference, but I haven't followed up with them. The power is in the follow-up. What if I just made sure I hit that email to them first thing in the morning? So using at least a 30 to 45-minute chunk first thing in the morning, prior to doing any routine, prior to doing anything else that is going to measurably move you forward is huge. So it's called magic time, and you want to do it before your morning routine.
I love that. That's such a great point, and it's interesting because as you're talking, I'm thinking, there's so many things. There's actually, as we're talking, I'm thinking of, wow, there's 3 things I can think of that are staring at me on my board, which I have in my office here, and I actually have it labeled important, not urgent. And I keep going to that category that's more urgent and not hitting those. So I love that strategy. You're waking up first 30 minutes of the day, hit the not urgent, important stuff. And you made me think back. I was talking to a CEO recently, a very successful CEO, and a company that he took from ground up that's grown just crazily and very successful. And I asked him, I said, what's your schedule like? I mean, are you like all over the place? And I was really surprised by his answer. He's like, no, he said, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in the 70, 80 hour work weeks. He said, I'm just very selective with what I do. I work 40 hours a week, but I believe in balance. And he just went on talking about that. I'm like, God, that's so spot on, because I find that the most successful leaders are like that. To your point, they're very good at deciding what they're going to do. And they don't pack their day nonstop, right? I mean, they actually have some breathing room in there and some time to reflect and think and have the creative juices going and all that stuff. I mean, you find that too, like the white space in the calendar.
Yeah. Let's talk about, John, let's talk about white space. It's been my new mission to actually create more white space in my schedule. And I had a friend of mine say, hey, I've heard of this white space thing that's starting to creep up more. White space is the new caffeine, right? It's like there's calendars, initially when we're the first half of your life, you're trying to put everything, you're saying yes to everything. You're just adding meetings. You don't know where the next opportunity is. And you're just going, go, 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 go. The second half of your life, you got to be more strategic. The first half of your life, you're playing checkers. Second half, you're playing chess. So what that means is where you spend your time should give you a 2, 3, 4, 10x return on your money, on your time. So you're in very strategic key meetings. Don't show up to meetings that you don't. There's nothing that's going to come out of it. Make sure that things that are truly valuable to you. Everyone says family is valuable to you. I call it BS. Look at your calendar. How important is your family if they're not on your calendar, right? Where's the time with your wife? Where's you going and spending meaningful time with your son, not just picking him up from practice and dropping him somewhere else. That's called an Uber driver. I'm talking about meaningful time.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And then where's the 3 hours on a Thursday where you contemplate the next 1 million, 5 million, $10 million idea, and you map it out and you create a mind map and you create the reasons why this is so powerful. Then you create an action plan. Then you give it to your leadership team on Monday morning. They're like, wow, this is going to triple our revenues in the next few years. Mm-hmm. See, that's white space time. It's so valuable, but we do so little of it. And so I encourage your listeners, block that off, put that in your calendar.
So let me ask you, and I'm anticipating a question that's in the mind of some of the listeners right now. I love what you're talking about. I want to do it, but I've gotten in this habit of saying yes to so many things. I mean, some things might be easier to say no to, but how do I say it? I mean, what if my boss comes to me and asks me to do something? I mean, am I saying no to him or her? Is it just a certain segment of my life I'm being selective with?
So if you're going on a vacation, like I'm going on a vacation at the end of this week, and I have to get so much stuff done. So like I only have a little bit of bandwidth. If I know that literally I'm only doing things that are going to like just super high yield at this point because I have no choice. That's how the mentality you have to have. You want to put in boundaries. Like you should have, like now with this pandemic and remote working, there's no turning off technically. You can still work till 8 o'clock at night, go grab some food, fire up your laptop afterward and crank out some more work. There's no one saying, as long as you have an accommodating family or friends or whatever, you just work for whatever. So it's creating these hard stops, these buffers where like things, you have to start having non-negotiables in your life. Mm-hmm. If you say yes to everything, you stand for nothing. So what is it that you really stand for? What is it you mean? And activity is not productivity. There's a huge difference. And so as you start, one is awareness. Week one, don't change anything. Just be aware of how you're spending your time. And then maybe say, hey, if I happen to not show up for that because I had a flat tire, could that meeting have gone on without me? Okay, maybe so. Okay. Or you can even start making your meetings, like normally everyone has an hour block for meetings, but how much, maybe you're saying, hey, look, from now on, my meetings are only 30 minutes. That's it. Mm-hmm. Now you're starting to have these little chunks of time. Yeah. And then it's what you do at that time. And so a calendar technique I use is not only creating shorter meetings, but then on Saturday mornings, before my whole family gets up, I do a chunk of time where I go deep on one thing that I didn't have a chance to do during the week. And I do it maybe 6 to 7:30 in the morning. Now 7:30 onward is family time, but I cranked out a secret chunk of time on Saturday morning without hurting anybody, and it's a very powerful chunk. Yeah. On Sunday morning, I plan my week. Mm-hmm. And really it's like, what are all the things I need to get done? I reflect back at the week I did. Did I hit my goals? Did I not hit my goals? What did I get distracted? Was I efficient? Was I on point? And, what did I learn? And going forward, these little planning blocks, they say, if you have 4 hours, spend the first 3 hours sharpening your axe before you chop down the tree. Mm-hmm. This is sharpening the axe.
Yeah, I love that. And there's all different types of things. I know one of the things I learned, and everybody's different. You got to kind of figure out where you are best, when you're best. I mean, there's a lot of sense also to thinking about the time of the day you're doing certain things. For me, I find if I operate best when I bundle things together. If I did a meeting for half an hour and then a half an hour break, or white space, a half an hour meeting, half an hour white space, that doesn't work for me because that half hour meeting is really eating up an hour. Whereas if I bundle it together, So I think there's a lot of sense in figuring out the little tricks that work for you.
I agree. Batching is key.
Yeah, big time. So one of the things that, you've been through, I know a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of leaders that are listening that are thinking about their last couple of years or 5 years or 10 years. And some of them have had more downs than ups in reality. Let's talk about that. Just the concept of the whole roller coaster ride that entrepreneurs, no matter what industry or business or what level of success, that they're riding that roller coaster. And how do top leaders handle that? What are the things that they're thinking or doing when they're going through those down times and trying to get themselves back up?
Yeah, I think it's knowing what they're fighting for, right? And if it's just monetary, it may not be enough horsepower to get you through the day. So it's really, you have to have such a compelling vision. There's female entrepreneurs I read, including Jamie Lee Kern. She wrote the book, Believe It. And she sold It Cosmetics to L'Oreal for 1.1 billion. There are, people like Elon Musk. There are people all over, but they had a compelling vision. So you must have that. Number two, you got to play in your zone of genius. I see a lot of entrepreneurs doing things because they should versus that this is an intersection of skill plus passion, right? And I was in a business where it was a health and wellness business where I was creating the very specialized care that was cash based to try to help help patients all over the country, and it was amazing. But because of I was running multiple other businesses at the time, I was constrained in some capabilities, and I noticed, and there's a rubric that I use that I learned. It's called ELF versus half. ELF is easy, lucrative, and fun. Half is hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating. So when you're in flow state and you're really in the vibe of the business, and it just works, and you may not be scaling or you're not at the goal yet, but you know that essentially you're good at it, and your patients like you, or your customers like you, your clients like you, and you're making money and you're profitable and there's a good margin and it's just fun and you're having a positive impact on the world. That's what you want to do more of. But if you notice you're having resistance every step of the way, it's just hard. Sometimes your dreams may not be your destiny. So that means listen to the cues that the universe is telling you. Hey, look, dummy, this may not be the right thing. This is not your zone of genius. Get into your zone of genius.
Yeah.
So that's been a wake-up call for me.
I love that so much. It reminds me, and somebody gave me advice a long time ago, a mentor of mine, and he said, sometimes, and he was speaking directly to me, he said, sometimes you are so focused on getting to a destination. He said, you need to slow down and pay attention to the signs, like you said. And he said, picture yourself like floating in a kayak down a river or in a lake, and suddenly a current kind of pulls you in a different direction. Let that happen, because a lot of times when you're in business and life in general, there are these things out there that if you're so myopic and focused like a laser beam and got the blinders on, you don't see that stuff. And you pass by these great opportunities, which I look back and I realize there were times where I had some great opportunities. And because I was so fixated on a destination, I didn't take the time to assess, hey, you know what? There's something interesting over here, and there's some compelling opportunities there. So yeah. I love that advice.
Yeah, John, I have this one of the guys of Quest Nutrition. His name is Tom Bilyeu. Sold his company for hundreds of millions of dollars. He says, "What's effortless to you that is truly having impact and positiveness in the world that seems like a lot of work for someone else? That's what you want to lead into."
Love it. That's amazing. And you're right. When you can find that intersection, I love ELF and half. That's great. When you can find the things that are easy, lucrative, and fun, that gets into really what your sweet spot is, like knowing what you're great at, what you love doing, what provides an impact, what people need, and can make money. You got the perfect intersection there. But most people go in those other directions and they fight through too long the stuff that they don't like doing and spend too much of their time on that, and doesn't lead them anywhere.
The other thing that I think entrepreneurs and business leaders do is sometimes they take on multiple projects, and I've been guilty of this too. I'm a self-proclaimed Renaissance man. I want to do it all. I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. But as I've become more experienced in my business career, and I've taken some licks, and what is it? The quote that they attribute to Mike Tyson getting punched in the face, I guess.
Yeah.
You start becoming a little smarter, and so I would say live by this quote: everything you touch turns to gold, but you must touch it long enough, and you can't touch multiple things at the same time. So I would say, like, if you're in a business, wait till that hits like $1 million revenue, or if it's $1 million, it has to hit 10 million before you can take on the second project. Mm-hmm. But really go all in with one project and hit that certain threshold or milestone before you take on a second one, because you diffuse your energy.
Yeah,
and there are some people who can pull it off,
mm-hmm.
but most people can't.
Yeah, great point. So those people that might be listening at some future point today, we're at the almost beginning of July, which I had to think for a minute, end of June, wherever we are in 2022. We've been through some uncertainty, but we're now sitting at a point where there's a lot of uncertainty moving forward. I mean, everything from economics. I mean, we're looking at very potentially a recession. We could be looking at interest rates going up, inflation out of control. We've got all kinds of stuff from a business and leadership standpoint that a leader might be wondering, like, okay, what is going to be happening in the future? What's your advice? I mean, how should a leader be during times like this? And I'm going to ask that in two different kind of directions. One, for their own self, should they be lurching forward and just not worrying about it being, cloudy and foggy and whatnot? Should they proceed cautiously? And also when they're leading their organization, I mean, how should they be as well?
Yeah, that's a great question, John. I'm leading 2 organizations right now, and I know you lead your organizations. The sense I'm getting is, one, you got to steady yourself. You got to lead yourself. Leaders first lead themselves. And so extreme self-care, radical self-care, in fact, your physiology, spot on, hydration, nutrition, fitness, like spot on, because that physiology will determine your state, and you want to control that. Next is, what is your mindset? What's your process? Are you still doing some gratitude work, or are you like, man, my life sucks. My wife sucks. My family sucks. Everything sucks. My income sucks. Or is, so watch your language, your focus, your physiology, what your belief systems, get all that centered. Number 2, as you realize, most companies during winters or economic recessions have grown. They've gained market share. They've become opportunistic, blood on the streets, taking advantage of it, and realize this is the next transfer of wealth for generations. And so be ready to be a recipient of that transfer of wealth. And so you have to be smart, opportunistic, but not compromise on your principles. Then you have to present that version of a leader to your organization. But you can't be cavalier. Hey, we're going to get through it. Don't worry. Let's just go. That's not being smart. That's being, foolhardy. It's saying, hey, look, how do we cautiously navigate any uncertainties? Can we have cash reserves on hand? And I got an internal memo from Sequoia Capital, one of the top venture capital companies in the country. And in the internal memo, they said, look at the opportunities there, look at trends, learn to play a little bit of defense while you're building up cash reserves so you can play offense in a short amount of time. And it's like these kind of thinkings. All right, this is what the top people in the world are doing. All right, let me follow suit. Mm-hmm. And, maybe this is a time where you double down on things that don't cost money, things that you haven't had a chance to do because you're in growth mode. Now it's like, hey, it's fortification mode. Let's take care of the foundation. Is it customer service? Is it R&D? Is it whatever that is? And get all those departments up and running and get poised to launch. Because I believe that, for every 1 year of recession, it's like 6-7 years of expansion. So get ready for that expansion.
Yeah.
And I think that's the mindset to have.
I think that's really smart. I mean, just that advice, building up cash. I like how you put that, to be able to aggressively play offense, quickly play offense when the time is there. I think that makes sense. And to your point, I think I could not agree more about the importance of self-leadership and really taking care of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, making sure that you're in a really strong place. I've never seen a leader who has not done that become successful or be successful in influencing other people. And that's a simple question. Would you want your people in your organization to not prioritize self-care? Of course not. So if you're a leader, why would your answer be any different than that? So that's great. So I know I want to still squeeze in as much as we can in this short amount of time that we have together. But one of the other big things that I know leaders deal with is just the whole concept of stepping outside their comfort zone. When you are everything we've talked about in reality, from managing your time, making changes with how you do things. I mean, this is just, it's uncomfortable. When a leader is going from startup phase to, growing the organization to 100 people or now taking a role as a CEO in a whole new industry. I mean, there's all kinds of versions of that. What's your take on that? I mean, how does a leader navigate discomfort successfully? How should they be thinking about it? What are the leadership lessons in that?
I believe leaders already, because they've defined themselves leaders and they've sort of stepped forward and say, hey, I want to be a leader. They've already saying, hey, look, that's because being a leader is uncomfortable. So they've already taken that first step. That's number one. Number two is you don't have to do it alone. There are people who've already gone before you. Look and role model best practices. So if there's a lot of entrepreneurs and CEOs who you just take them from one organization to another and you plop them right in, and within a couple of months, they're leading that organization and they're outsiders, if you will. And that's remarkable. The question is, how do they do that? How is like a software executive going to lead an automotive company? These are the kind of things that I ask. And what I've seen is there's common principles that are true no matter what business you're in. Like, John, you're a highly sought after business executive who helps consult with, Fortune 500 companies, but you don't necessarily know the business of that Fortune 500 company. How do you do it? You understand general business principles. You understand structure. You understand, the game of business, cash flow, profitability, development, customer relationships, and then you adapt all that and you figure out the challenges that are on. And there's usually common challenges in all organizations or businesses, right? There's internal challenges to the personnel and there's external challenges to the company. And so it's understanding all that and then having a framework to attack it. One of the frameworks I use is something called RPM. RPM is really, what is the result I'm going after? That's what R stands for result. P stands for purpose and M stands for massive action. Results focused, purpose driven, massive action plan. And I've learned this from some of my mentors. So the result is really, what is that organization or that leader trying to accomplish? And be very specific. Name the problem or the challenge or the outcome, and then timestamp it. What's the time frame you want to attack it by? Figure out the reasons why this is valuable. This is a worthy challenge for you that you want to go after. And then include all the stakeholders that are involved. And then finally, come up with like 10, 20, 30 items to attack it. And this is really more of a brainstorm, a data dump. And then you do the Pareto, right? Extreme Pareto even. What's the one thing out of this list of 10 to 12 to 20 that would get me that result in the shortest amount of time? And then do that. And then, be collaborative. A leader is not a person who leads. It's not a dictator. A leader is the one who enables other leaders in the organization to rise up. And that's what you teach as well, John. So it's really getting buy-in and engagement and empowering others to help solve these problems. Because at that point, the leader can go higher in the organization as he brings other leaders with him.
I love it. I think a key thing is, and I talk to leaders all the time, that, when you get to develop a close relationship with them, they open up a little bit and they acknowledge the fact that they're experiencing a lot of discomfort. Sometimes it's just, hey, I feel like I'm in over my head. I don't know if I'm really qualified for this role. I don't know. And my feedback is you have no idea how many leaders face that. And it's not a matter of the fear that somehow they just push it away. It's just a matter of how you deal with it. It's not that it's not there or you don't face discomfort. It's how you handle it. And that's just part
the growth you want is on the other side of the uncertainty and then the fear. And I have a lot of doctors who come to me and say, hey, I have imposter syndrome. I'm like, great. That means you're on the right track. That means your goals and dreams are worthy enough, and they're big. They're, the BHAGs have big, hairy, audacious goals.
Yeah.
If you don't have imposter syndrome, you're not thinking big enough.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great way to look at it. I think that's a great perspective. So I'll ask you to leave us with maybe one last tidbit of advice in a minute. Before we do that, I know there's some people that might want to either learn more about you, get a hold of you, learn about your company. Where can they go? What's the best way for them to do that?
Sure. I own a real estate investment firm that helps executives, high income professionals, and other folks successfully, invest in multifamily syndications all over the country. We have a strong track record. Love for people to find out more about our opportunities for people to grow their passive income, and that's vikingmultifamily.com. My company is called Viking Capital, so it's vikingmultifamily.com. And then if you ever want to work with me one-on-one as a coach, as a client, I have a coaching program, and that's called Limitless MD, and it's my first and last name.com. So it's vikramraya.com, VIKRAM, last name is RAYA.com.
Awesome. We'll put all that in the show notes. Real quick, what are your favorite books? Any good book recommendations?
Yeah, I have a really good one that I don't think is on most people's radar. It's called $100 Million Offers. It's by a guy named Alex Hormozi. Phenomenal book, simple book, but phenomenal book. Really digs into the sales process, into how to create an amazing offer, and really talks about, how to enroll people into whatever business or product or program you're trying to do.
And it's called, again, $100 Million Offers?
$100 Million Offers.
Awesome.
And if I had to have a bonus of another one, it's Ed Mylett is a successful business executive, also a motivational speaker. He just recently released a book called The Power of One More. And I love the fact that he's also supporting Uvalde and then the whole the incident out there in Texas and this shooting. And so he's helping give the proceeds to all the kids out there. So it's awesome.
That's great. He's a tremendous person. Excellent, my friend. Last piece of advice. What nugget do you want to leave the audience with?
Yeah, play a bigger game, my friends. Your potential and your actions, there's probably a disconnect. So your potential is potentially infinite, and you're playing small. And I say, let's step up, man, and take advantage of this season of uncertainty for most, and take the certainty and give it to yourself. Create by having faith and just extraordinary effort.
Awesome. Great stuff, my man. You are a absolutely terrific leader. You got a great track record. You're doing great things. And I love the insights that you shared with the audience today. I learned a lot, took away some good stuff. I'm sure they did too. So I appreciate it, my friend.
John, thank you so much.
You got it. And thanks all for joining today on this episode of Tomorrow's Leader. Great episode. Make sure you check out the links. We'll have everything that Vikram talked about in the show notes. Check him out. Check out his company. Check out his coaching program. We've been here with Vikram Raya. And again, thanks for joining today. Like, share, subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. You know the deal. Go down below, give a 5-star review, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.